Greetings and welcome to the lesson. The subject is auditing and assurance. Today we're going to begin on a new chapter known as auditing in a computerized system. Auditing in a computerized system. This chapter has 14 subchapters and we'll be covering a subchapter at a time, subtopic. There are 14 subtopics. We are going to cover a subtopic one at a time, and at the end of every lesson I'll be providing you with the revision questions which I expect you to do. Therefore, welcome to the lesson. The chapter is auditing in a computerized system. Now, candidates, in today's rapidly evolving digital landscape, the prevalence of computerized systems in accounting and financial reporting has revolutionized the auditing profession. Most companies now have computerized accounting systems. And because of the prevalence of the accounting systems, that has changed the way in which auditors carry out their functions. And while these systems offer unparalleled efficiency and accuracy, they also introduce unique challenges and risks that auditors must navigate. So, this chapter on auditing in a computerized environment serves as a roadmap for both aspiring and even the seasoned auditors seeking to master the intricacies of the auditing profession. And in this chapter, we will be delving firstly on the core objectives of auditing in a computerized system. That is the first subchapter. We will explore the multifaceted benefits and potential pitfalls of computerized accounting systems, and we will equip you with the knowledge to harness their advantages while mitigating the associated risks. There is also a subtopic on types of controls. Types of controls. Here we'll be seeking to help you understand the diverse types of controls that safeguard data integrity and system reliability, which is paramount for effective auditing. We also dissect the various control mechanisms from administrative oversight to application-specific safeguards, ensuring that you understand their pivotal roles in maintaining a robust control environment. And furthermore, candidates, to empower you in the digital age, we will investigate the innovative use of what we call computers and cutting-edge computer-assisted audit techniques, popularly known as the CATs. And by mastering the CATs and the methodologies, you'll be able to efficiently analyze vast data sets to streamline audit procedures and also to uncover hidden anomalies. In the subtopic number 6, planning the audit in a computerized system, there is a chapter on planning the audit in computerized systems. Planning the audit in computerized systems. Candidates, here we will be looking at planning and executing audits in computerized environments, which we know can be demanding, but we will outline the strategies and the strategic considerations and the procedural adaptations that are necessary to address the unique risks that are posed by computerized systems. Then we'll also go ahead to assess the potential. We will begin maybe from assessing the potential loss of audit trails to employing embedded audit modules, and also the integrated test facilities, which provide a comprehensive toolkit for navigating the complexity of computerized system. The complexity of computerized system. So those are the embedded, the approaches of audit approaches, auditing around the computer, auditing with the computer and through the computer, and circumstances when each is applied. I've talked about computer assisted audit techniques. Will highlight the audit software and also the test data. You understand, candidates? There is also the aspect of the threats in a computerized system. Now, as the threat landscape evolves, candidates, there is need to safeguard sensitive financial data, which is today increasingly becoming critical. We will examine the pivotal role of information security controls such as encryption, firewalls, passwords, and also antivirus software in protecting against unauthorized access and data breaches. So by the end of this chapter, you will possess a well-rounded understanding of auditing in a computerized system. And you will be equipped with the knowledge and skills to conduct thorough, efficient, and effective audits in the digital age. So whether you are a student embarking on your auditing journey, or whether you are a seasoned professional seeking to stay ahead of the curve, this topic is a great resource that will serve as an invaluable companion in your pursuit of audit excellence. Now, having said that, we can begin with the first subtopic, which is audit objectives in computerized systems. Audit objectives in computerized systems. Now, candidates, the objectives of audit in computerized systems are generally the same as those in other audits, but with considerations for specific risks and different controls that are present in the digital environment. And these objectives typically include: one, there are various audit objectives. We want to highlight some of the objectives, audit objectives in computerized systems. First of all, I've said that the objectives of audit in a computerized systems are generally the same as in any other audit, but with considerations for specific risks and controls that are present in the digital environment. So, auditing in a digital environment poses certain risks and challenges that are just unique to that environment, as opposed to auditing in a manual environment. But the objectives are generally the same. So the first audit objective in a computerized environment is to ensure reliability and integrity of information. Ensuring reliability is to ensure reliability and integrity of the information. That is the first audit objective. And in ensuring reliability and integrity, the auditor is required, first of all, to verify the accuracy of financial and operational data. Accuracy. The auditor can only ensure reliability and integrity of information in an audit environment by verifying the accuracy of financial and operational data. That can also be achieved through completeness. 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 The auditor has to ensure that all transactions and events are recorded. All transactions and events are recorded. Another point to ensure reliability and integrity, number 3, is through validity. Validity. The auditor has to confirm that transactions are authorized and legitimate. The transactions that are presented to him in a computerized environment are not only authorized but legitimate, because they can be authorized but not legitimate, and they can be legitimate but not authorized. So the auditor has to ensure that the validity of information in a computerized environment. So the first objective of audit objectives in a computerized system, computerized system, is to ensure reliability, which is done through checking the accuracy of information, the completeness of information, and the validity of information. The second key objective is in relation to efficiency and effectiveness, evaluating efficiency and effectiveness. Evaluating efficiency and effectiveness of operations. The second audit objective in a computerized environment or system is to evaluate the efficiency and effectiveness of operations. And that is done through 1, operational controls. Operational controls. That means assessing the adequacy of controls over input, processing, and output. Input, processing, and output. Input, processing, and output. Assessing the adequacy of controls over input at the point of inputting data in the computer system, processing data that has been inputted, and the output. Are there controls at each stage? That's what we are referring to as operational controls. 2, system performance. System performance. That is to say, reviewing the efficiency and the effectiveness of system operations. Computer system operations. Reviewing the efficiency and effectiveness of the system operations. 3, Resource utilization. Resource utilization is another way to evaluate efficiency and effectiveness. Efficiency and effectiveness is always related to resources. Okay? Do you understand? Resource utilization. That means evaluating the optimal use of resources, including hardware, software, personnel, and so on. So one audit objective in a computerized system is to evaluate efficiency and effectiveness of operations. And one way to evaluate efficiency and effectiveness of operations is through resource utilization, which means evaluating the optimal use of hardware, software, and personnel. Three, safeguarding assets. Safeguarding assets is an objective in computerized systems. Safeguarding assets. Safeguarding assets. Okay? And that is done through one, logical access controls. Assets are safeguarded through the logical access controls. That is to say, verifying the adequacy of access controls to prevent unauthorized access to data and computer system. Do you understand? To safeguard assets, there has to be logical access controls where only authorized personnel access the computer system, access the data. Do you understand? Access controls. That is how to safeguard assets. In relation to safeguarding assets, there is the aspect of physical security. Physical security. Physical security. That is to mean reviewing physical security measures to protect the assets of the organization, to protect hardware, to protect software from theft or from damage. Physical security is a way to safeguard hardware, software against theft and damage. You understand? We've done 3 key objectives. Then another one is in relation to compliance. Compliance with laws. Compliance with laws. Number 4, compliance with laws, regulations. Compliance with laws, regulations, and internal policies. That is an audit objective in computerized systems. The first one is regulatory compliance. Through regulatory compliance. Regulatory compliance. That is to ensure adherence to relevant laws and regulations, e.g., data protection laws, privacy laws, industry-specific regulations, and so on. That is how compliance with laws, regulations, and internal policies are concerned. Regulatory compliance. There is also internal policies. Internal policies. internal policies. Internal policies. That is to mean verifying compliance with internal policies, procedures that are related to IT systems and data. Organizations that operate in a computerized environment must have internal policies which guide employees on matters relating to information, the information system, the data, and so on. So when conducting an audit, the auditor has to have this objective of checking if the internal policies are complied with. You understand? Another objective is to provide recommendations for improvement. Providing recommendations for improvement. That is an audit objective in a computerized system. And these recommendations can be as a result of control weaknesses, control weaknesses. The auditor may identify weaknesses in the control system, and therefore he or she ought to report on control weaknesses and provide recommendations for improvement. The recommendations can also be based on operational efficiency. Operational efficiency. The auditor can suggest ways to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of the information technology systems and also the processes. Remember here, one objective is to evaluate efficiency and effectiveness of operations. In the process of evaluating the efficiency and effectiveness of operations in relation to operational controls, system performance, and resource utilization, the auditor may or should make recommendations where he feels that there is room for improvement. Providing recommendations for improvement on the basis of control weaknesses or operational efficiency. So candidates, these are 5 key audit objectives in computerized systems. 1, ensure reliability and integrity. Ensure reliability and integrity. Ensure reliability and integrity. 2, and that we said can be done through accuracy, completeness, and validity. Number 2, evaluating efficiency and effectiveness of operations through operational controls, systems performance, resource utilization. Safeguarding assets. These are physical security of the hardware, software, and against theft and wastage. Then there is logical access controls. The fourth audit objective is compliance, ensuring compliance with laws, regulations, and internal policies, and lastly, providing recommendations for improvement. That is the end of the lesson assignment. Number 1, what are the primary objectives of conducting an audit in a computerized system environment? Number 2, how do the objectives of an audit in a computerized system differ from those in a manual system? 3, what are the specific risks and control considerations that auditors should focus on when auditing computerized systems? 4 is what are the key challenges that auditors face in defining and achieving audit objectives in a complex computerized system? Those are 4 questions. In our next lesson, we're going to differentiate between computerized and manual systems. Bye-bye.
Hello learners, and welcome to this session. Today we intend to cover more advanced functions and formulas in Excel, and specifically we are going to start with areas to do with cell referencing. So we are going to cover cell referencing. Of course, cell referencing is divided into three. We have relative cell referencing, we have absolute cell referencing, and we have mixed cell referencing. We are going to look at all of the above mentioned type of cell referencing so that we can be able to come up with how they work and how they help you as a user or a user in Excel to be able to execute your functions. Welcome, and I hope this session will be fruitful. First, we are going to open Excel the normal way. And once Excel is open, we will create a new workbook. Remember, this is a workbook that we had previously looked at, or we had previously studied. I'm going to apply a keyboard formula of Control and N, Control plus N, to be able to come up with a new workbook. Control N. Control N gives me a new workbook named Book 1. We are in Sheet 1. So I'm going to immediately save this workbook by clicking on File, then Save. I'll give it a name, Cell Referencing. Cell referencing, then saved. Then in my first worksheet, I'm going to give this worksheet a name, Mixed Cell Referencing. Mixed Cell Referencing, that is the name of the first worksheet that we have here, Mixed Cell Referencing. Now, before we go to Mixed Cell Referencing, what is cell referencing? When you talk about cell referencing, it simply refers to how formula cell references adjust, or how formula cell references change in relation to the new areas that they are copied to. So cell referencing refers to how formula cell references adjust or change in relation to the new location they are copied to. Remember, formulas can be copied downwards, or they can also be copied across. So cell referencing refers to how formula cell references change or adjust in relation to the new areas that they are copied to. A good example is if you, maybe let us use an illustration, or before you go to an illustration, there are three types of cell referencing. Mixed, the one that we are going to start with. So let us start with mixed cell referencing. Not mixed cell referencing, but relative cell referencing. That was an error there. So relative cell referencing. Relative cell referencing is a scenario where the formula's cell references change, or the formula's cell references are free to move, or they are free to adjust in reference to the new areas that they are copied to. So it means formulas are free, formulas change willingly in the new areas that they are copied to, either downwards or even across. That is relative cell referencing. And in relative cell referencing, you don't have to do anything. Actually, it is the default type of cell referencing in Microsoft Excel. So it's default, it comes by default, and you don't have to do anything to a formula, because when you copy it down or when you copy it across, a formula will just change its cell references in relation to the new location that they are copied to. So let us use an example. So we have here ABC Limited, cooking fat distributors, ABC Limited Cooking Fat Distributors. And after ABC Limited Cooking Fat Distributors, we have the product that ABC deals with. Product, of course, this one will be product name. We have quarter one. I can use quarter one. We have quarter two. Quarter two. We have quarter three. Then we have quarter four. Quarter four in that order. Then we have total. After that, we are going to bring in the products, like they are selling Kimbo, they have Elianto, they have Zenta, they have Chipo. Then in quarter one, maybe this one is in shillings, it could be 4,500 in shillings or in units. Here maybe they sold 2,340. On this side they sold 2,500. Then quarter four they sold 7,500 or 756. Elianto 3,200. 2,300, that one is 3,401, 1,510, 2,305, 1,110, 2,350, 3,468, 2,457. Then is Chipo 3,400. They did not sell anything there, so maybe 0. 5,210, then 2,000 flat. This is what they sold, and here we also have total. Then we also have annual sales here. Annual sales in that particular area there. After that, this is to be, maybe you can do something here, then insert borders. I'm going to insert borders on that, all borders, so it's bordered. And again, I'll make it more interesting by deleting those cells. So I'll delete those cells there. They are gone. I will, yeah, it looks fine. I'll also adjust this if need be, so that we have something like that. If you want to, there are things that you can also merge. You can merge the above area, so merge across, can make it bold. You can also be able to increase the size of that so that it's more visible. Could do the same here. By increasing the font size so that it's more visible to all the users, so something like that. Then you can adjust. You can even make this bold again to just to make it more appealing and visible. Now we want to put in practice relative cell referencing, and we say relative cell referencing is where the formula cell references are free to move or adjust in relation to the new areas that they are copied to. I want to get the total for Kimbo in quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. So the formula is that we just add, or we can use sum, or I can just add. Whichever formula that you see, you can use to get this. So look at the formula. Equal signs B5 plus C5 plus D5 plus E5. When you hit enter, remember this is B5, C5, D5 and E5. Up to that point, there is no any other plus. When you hit enter, the answer is what you see here, 10,096. You can be able to add the commas this way and decrease the zeros or increase the zeros if you want. I want mine to be like that. So what I'm interested with is, if you double click here, the formula B5. The formula cell references is B5, C5, D5 and E5. What if you copy the formula down? So if you copy the formula down by dragging at this particular location here, and you drag down the formula, it arrives at that. Look at the second portion. All the answers are here. I'll undo and copy again. So if you copy down, it changes and the rest of the answers are given. Look at the second one. The second one is now B6, C6, D6 and E6. So the references have changed. Again, I repeat, the first one that we entered was B5, but when you move to the second one, you can see it has moved to B6, C6, D6 and E6. So it means the formula has changed its references in relation to where it was copied, that is downwards. If you look at this one, it moved from what we had here as B5 and it's now B7, C7. So the references are what we are talking about. They are changing as you copy the formula down. So that is formula references changing in relation to the new location that you copy it to. Even the last one is B8, C8, D8 and E8. Remember, we entered only one formula here, which was B5. You can see your formula bar here, B5, C5, D5 and E5. But as you copy it down, it changes to now the B8, C8, D8 and E8. So that's how relative cell referencing works, where the formula cell references are free to move or change in relation to the new location that they are copied to. Now what if it is to be done now across? Let's see. What if you have to copy your formula across? So we're going to use one of the many functions that we already know of. I can use formulas, sum, then sum. So it picks everything already. The same thing, of course, can be done by preceding that with an equal sign, then sum, then double click on the sum, drag from top up to down, then you close with the bracket, then you hit enter. Before you hit enter, the formula cell references are B5, the range of B5 to B8, B5 to B8. If you enter, remember it can be copied down. I will include the decimals and after that reduce the zeros that way. Now I repeat, B5, B8. Those are the formula cell references. If you copy it across, if you copy this formula across, the way I'm dragging the formula here using this option, I copy it across. Now what are the new formula cell references in specific locations? Remember, the hash means that the space was limited there, so I've expanded column B. Now the formula changes to C5. Remember here the formula was B5 and B8. But if you copy it across, the formula cell references changes to C5 and C8. Here you can see it is E5 and E8. So it keeps changing. It's not the same as the other one. In fact, the columns are being adjusted as you move to the right. The formula cell references keep changing as you drag it to the right. Again, the first one was B5 and B8. But when you move to the next one, the B changes to now C, and this one moves to C, and C5, C8. This other one will be D5 and D8. The other one will be E5 and E8 in that order. This one moves to F5 and F8. So in relative cell referencing, the formula cell references are free to move as you copy your formulas, either moving down or moving across. What if you want to get the annual sales here? This would be equal sign, then you take the total here, then you multiply that with, of course, 4, because a year has 4 quarters. After that, your answer is 162,388. So that is relative cell referencing. Remember, you can do a lot on this. You can change the colors if you want. If at all you want to change that color, you can be able to change. You can even change the background color if you so wish. If this is what interests you, you can change the background colors and all that. So you can do a lot even to this. Assuming you want to adjust various things there, like background colors, it's all possible. You can be able to change the background colors and all that. This can also be changed to something else, like that. Looks nice. You can also change this to a different background color if that is what suits your needs. So that is a relative cell referencing. Remember, in relative cell referencing, formulas are free to move or adjust in relation to the new areas that they are copied to. Next, we will look at absolute cell referencing. Of course, in absolute cell referencing, that one is a bit different. So I'm going to create a new worksheet. Remember, this one is relative. I'll give it a tab color. That is better. Then I'll be able to create a new one and rename it to absolute cell referencing. Absolute cell referencing. Absolute cell referencing. Now, this was relative. Now we move to absolute cell referencing. Change the tab color to even blue, like that. Now in absolute cell referencing, it's a bit different, because under this kind of cell referencing, formula cell references are made to be fixed, or let's say constant, pointing to the cells that have been made, of course, to be fixed or constant. So it means the formula cell references are made to be fixed, or they are made to be constant, pointing to the cells originally copied from. That is absolute cell referencing. Remember, as you do your formula, there is this particular cell that maybe you want your formulas to keep referring to. If you want to do that, then it means you'll be applying absolute cell referencing, where the formula cell references are made to be fixed or constant, pointing to the cells originally copied from. And for you to be able to make a cell to be fixed or constant, it means you will precede both the column heading and the row heading of that particular cell with a $sign. You will precede the column heading and the row heading of that particular cell with a $sign. For you to be able to do that, it is the function, one of the functional keys, F4. So if you press on F4, we'll be seeing that as we begin on that. It means you will have inserted a $sign both before the column and the row heading, or shift together with 4. Shift together with 4 also does the same tasks as F4 when you want to bring on board a $sign both before the column and the row headings. Let's put that again in practice, and we will have, let's say XYZ universal traders, XYZ universal traders, XYZ universal traders, and we can talk of analysis of product sales, analysis of product sales for the year ended 2022, and here we have value added tax, VAT rate. So we have VAT rate, value added tax rate. So that is value added tax rate. We have discount rate. So discount rate, of course, it will be in percentage. VAT rate is 16%, so I'm going to 16%. The discount 2.5. The discount is 2.5%. Here, product there, and then buying price. This could be buying price. there is VAT amount, VAT amount, VAT amount. We have after VAT amount we have selling price, selling price in that order. We have discount or discounted price, discounted price, discounted price in that order. So we have selling price and we also have discounted price. Of course we have products, tissue, Pampers, we have cooking oil, and maybe should not be in sentence case, tissue, Pampers, cooking oil, and the last product can be honey. One can also bring in the milk. That way, then the buying price of tissue, we are going for a roll of maybe 4 or a roll of 10 or a roll of 8. That can be around 320. Pampers 865. Cooking oil 1399. Honey, that can be 1500. Milk 534. So that is the buying price of those products. But before we move forward, I want us to insert the borders. So you select everything this way. Before that, you can also get the total. You can also get the total here. Total. Then now we select everything that way. Then insert borders. Insert borders, all borders. Once you've inserted all borders, you make sure that it's a bit visible by increasing the size. Once you have that, you adjust again that everything fits well. Just make sure everything is visible, even the amount, price, discounted price. Then I want to merge this, merge and center, merge and center, or merge and center. I want to do away with some border there, so I'll say bottom border. I'm doing away with bottom border. It's still there, but bottom border again, bottom border, it's still there. Okay, what about top border? Bottom border, yeah, it's still there, it's fine. I can also, this one is centered, well centered. I believe I can remove this. You just select and delete cells. So I delete cells and they are gone. There is a border that has gone away, so that is the right border. So the right border is back. Now this is what we can use in absolute cell referencing. We want to get the VAT amount. Maybe I can do the formulas here. How do you get VAT amount? Assuming that you have VAT amount, the formula for VAT amount is that is equal to VAT rate or buying price. That is buying price, because that will be multiplied with the VAT rate. Buying price times VAT rate. Now this is the formula for getting the VAT amount. Buying price times the VAT rate. Now what if you just go ahead and say, that is buying price times VAT amount, that is buying price, so equal sign, then buying price, which is B7, times VAT amount, and you enter 51.2. Well, the first answer is correct because it's taking buying price times VAT rate, which is 51.2. So very correct. What if you copy it down? What if the answer is to be copied down? Are the other answers correct? Let's see the second one. The second one, it is saying that it's 21.625. Do you think 865 times 16% is 21.625? Let us confirm. Remember, it is taking 865, which is B8, but it is now multiplying with 2.5% and not 16%. Remember, VAT amount is buying price times VAT rate. So the formula needs to keep taking the buying price times VAT rate and not moving down to 2.5. So the second answer is wrong. What about the third answer for cooking oil? It's taking B9. B9 is this. Then it's multiplying with buying price. You cannot take a number and multiply with a text. Of course, that is why your answer is value, which means there is an error here. So it's also wrong. What about honey? Do you think 1,500 times 16% is 480,000? Let's confirm. So this is taking, yes, 1,500, but it's multiplying with B7. B7 is 320. So again, it's wrong. The third one is also wrong. So to avoid such wrong answers, that is where absolute cell referencing comes in. That means as you copy the formulas down, they need to keep taking the buying price but keep referring to 16%, which is the VAT rate. So it means this cell need to be made fixed or constant. Wherever you copy the formula, either down or across, this cell has to be fixed or constant, and that is where absolute cell referencing comes in. So we're going to change our formula and do it afresh now using absolute cell referencing. So equal sign, yes, 320, then you multiply with this. You can see we've clicked on B4, which is 16%. Once you've done that, press on F4 on the keyboard, a functional key, F4. So we have F4, which is between F3 and F5. So there is F4 there. You press on it on the keyboard and it gives you dollar signs. You can see the dollar signs here, both before the column and the row heading. So dollar sign B, dollar sign 4. If you don't want to do that, you can do manually, Shift and 4. So dollar sign, then you press B, then again dollar sign, Shift and 4, then you press on the row headings, which is 4. Again it is dollar sign B, dollar sign 4. That is a long cut. So the thing that you should do, press on 16, then press F4 on the keyboard so that it gives you the this one becomes fixed, or rather constant, pointing to the cell that has been made fixed or constant. So once you've done that, you enter on the keyboard. So you just enter on the keyboard. The answer is 51.2. What if now we copy down? If you copy down, it moves to the answers that you now need. The second VAT amount is 138.4, and that can be confirmed. It is 865 times 16%. The third one is 1399 times 16%. This other one is 1500 times 16%. The last one is 534 times, again, 16%. So what we've done is that the cell B4 has been made to be fixed using absolute cell referencing by inserting the dollar sign both before the column and the row headings. That's why we have correct answers here. So wherever you copy that particular formula, it will keep referring to this cell which is fixed. That is where 16% is, and this is absolute cell referencing, of course. Now, selling price. How do you get the selling price? Selling price is given by buying price plus VAT amount. Buying price plus VAT amount. So that one doesn't have absolute cell referencing. You just add. That is equal sign this, then you add with this other one to give you the selling price. That one doesn't require absolute cell referencing. Once you have this answer, of course, that is a relative cell referencing. You just apply relative cell referencing where no cell is to be made fixed. So you copy it down and you'll have your answers to the end. Discounted price. Again, under discounted price, we will need we will need the guidance of absolute cell referencing. So how do you get discounted price? Discounted price is given by selling price, minus discount amount. Selling price minus discount amount. That means you get discounted price. But do we have discount amount? We don't have discount amount, though we have selling price. We're saying that discounted price is selling price minus discount amount. So we're going to insert some formulas here which will help us to get the entire thing, of course, the discounted price. Every formula is preceded with a dollar with an equal sign. So you start with an equal sign, then it is selling price. So you click in 371.2, which is B7, minus. Now we need to compute that discount. Maybe discount is given by, or the discounted amount is given by the selling price times the discount rate. Selling price times the discount rate, which means that again you click on the selling price. Before you click on the selling price, you can include bracket. Then you click on the selling price, then you multiply with the discount rate, because whatever is in bracket is the discount amount. Discount amount is given by the selling price times the discount rate. So you multiply with 2.5. Then you want this to be fixed or constant. So again you must apply absolute cell referencing. So that is F4. So that it can be fixed, you close the bracket, and this is what you have. So what we have here in this particular formula is selling price minus discounted amount, where discounted amount is given by selling price times the discount rate, whatever is in bracket, selling price times the discount rate. Then you enter, you'll have that particular answer, which can then be copied down, and all of the rest are now correct. And I will finish here. So the discount amount is given by selling price times discount rate, selling price times the discount rate, like that. So these are the formulas that we've used in getting what we wanted in that particular illustration. So I can reduce this so that it's the same size as the others there. Once you have that, there are so many things that you can do here. If you want to include decimals, you just click on the comma and you go ahead and just reduce this to maybe 2 decimal places is fine. Again, total, you can use any of the formulas. You can even use AutoSum. This AutoSum here, which will help you to get the sum of the above. You confirm if you want to sum from B7 to B11, and indeed that is correct, from which you just drag across to here. So that is what we've done in absolute cell referencing, you can see. And this, again, if you want to insert the colors the way we did the other one, it's very much possible. So that means you just want to make it more user-friendly or more appealing, as you want. And if you want again to change inside here, very much possible to change. So we can leave ours like this, and the most important thing was absolute cell referencing. So that is relative cell referencing, absolute cell referencing. Of course, the last type of cell referencing is known as mixed cell referencing. So let us look at mixed cell referencing. Mixed cell referencing is where you decide to insert a dollar sign either before the column or the row heading, but not both of them. So it means the dollar sign will either be before the column or the row heading, but of course not both of them. Where there is no dollar sign, it's known as relative cell referencing. Where there is dollar sign both before the column and the row heading, it is known as absolute cell referencing. But where there is only one dollar sign, either before the column heading or the row heading, it is known as mixed cell referencing. So let us see mixed cell referencing. Mixed cell referencing. Mixed cell referencing. So that is mixed cell referencing. We can change the tab color to a different one like that. Then this is relative, this is absolute, then this is mixed cell referencing. So mixed cell referencing is where a user decides to use a dollar sign either before the column or the row headings, and we are going to straight away do an example. This is AMC Holdings Bank, AMC Holdings Bank. Then we say interest rate, I need them to be caps. Interest rate computation schedule. So that is interest rate computation schedule. Then we will have some interest rates here, or we can have year amount. There is interest rate and there is amount, then we'll be computing. So there is a rate and of course amount, rate and amount, rate, amount. This one can be expanded. We have here 5%, 7%, 8%, 12%, 15%, that way. Then now under amount we can have 100,000, we can have 300,000, 500,000, 700,000, 1 million, and 1 million in that order. So this is what we have. I want again to have the borders, so all borders. Then that is fine. We can be able to actually use these and get the interest amounts now. Now in this particular case we are going to apply mixed cell referencing. I can increase their sizes for more visibility to that. Then with that you can also be able to adjust this to make it more appealing. You can merge this and center, or this one first, merge and center, merge and center, like that. If you so want, you can change the colors of those things to different colors of your choice. Let us leave it at black. Now we want to compute if the loan amounts 100,000 and we have here 5%, what is the interest? So interest rate computation schedule, a equal sign, every formula is preceded with an equal sign. Remember, if you want to get the interest amount, you just get the amount of the loan divided by the interest. So the amount of the loan, I mean, you multiply with the interest. The amount of the loan, you multiply with the interest. So equal sign, this, then you multiply with the interest, and you can be able to insert a dollar sign either before the column or the row heading. Assuming that you are inserting a dollar sign here, what is the answer? So remember here the dollar sign is before only the column heading. Before only the column heading. The dollar sign is before only the column heading. The answer is 5,000 here. Can this be copied down or across? It can only be one way. If you copy down, the answer is wrong. What if you copy across? Again, you get some wrong answers which are wrong. Let us see. The dollar sign, if inserted before the column headings, gives you a wrong answer. What if it's inserted before the row heading? So the dollar sign shift and 4 so that you can have the dollar sign here. Remember, in absolutes, in mixed cell referencing, the dollar sign will either be before the column or the row heading. Either before the column or the row heading. So let's see. This one is before the row heading. If you copy it down, the answer is correct, I believe. But if you try copying this formula across, the answer is wrong again. So it means it can only be copied down in that particular case. A5, which is 100,000, divided by B $4. So that one gives you a correct answer if you copy it down. Now again, if you want to do the same thing and copy across, it will be equal sign, then now dollar sign, that is shift and 4, then A, where the 100,000 is column A, so A, then multiply that with this percentage, which is B3. Now the dollar sign is before the column, then now multiply with the 5%, you enter. There is a problem with the formula, of course there is. This means we did not complete. It is A5 here, so that it picks this. Enter. The answer is the same, 5,000. Then this can now be copied across comfortably. So if you copy that across, remember the answer is 100,000 here divided by 5. What about the second one? Still 100,000 divided by 7. What about this? 100,000 divided by 8. What about this? 100,000 divided by 12, in that order. So the answer is correct if you do it that way. Again here, equal sign, then dollar sign, that is shift and 4, then A, then 6. Multiply that with 5. Then hit enter. That is 15,000. You can copy it across. So you do it one by one, and you'll be able to use mixed cell referencing to get all your answers. So shift, dollar sign, A7, multiply with 5%, hit enter, then you can be able to copy this across. Copy that across. Again, equal sign, shift and 4 for dollar sign, A8, then you multiply with the 5%, hit enter, then you copy across for your answer, which is there. Then finally, equal sign, shift and 4 for the dollar sign, A, column A, where there is 1 million, row 9, then multiply that with the 5%, hit enter, and you copy across for you to be able to get your answer there. So all these answers are correct. Now you can see it is 1 million times 15%. 1 million times 15%, you get what you want here. And that completes the mixed cell referencing. Remember, instead of using mixed cell referencing, the same thing can be done using absolute cell referencing. You can just be able to use absolute cell referencing to get this interest rate computation schedule. Instead of using mixed cell referencing, the absolute cell referencing is also very much applicable. So I believe the session was great, because you now can be able to use the 3 types of cell referencing. You can be able to apply mixed cell referencing, absolute cell referencing, and relative cell referencing as you do a lot of executions in Excel, as you perform your analysis of data, as you do different comparisons and computations. You'll be able to apply relative cell referencing, absolute cell referencing, and mixed cell referencing in your variety of tasks. Maybe your only task to do is to try and do this. So task to do, we have the something here, radius. So this one is radius, no, radius, and you have to get the area, you have to get the perimeter. Just get area and perimeter. Given a radius of 450, and also given a radius of 500, given a radius of 800, and given a radius of 910, and given a radius of 1200. Remember, pi is equal to 22 over 7. That is 22 over 7. Let's see. That is equal sine 22 divided by 7. 22 divided by 7. And we can squeeze this to include only a few decimal places, 3 decimal places. So 3.143. If pi is 3.143, get area and get perimeter of this. So this is your task to do. And for you to be able to do this, you are going to apply absolute cell referencing. So make sure that you apply absolute cell referencing and get the area and also get the perimeter of these particular items that I've placed there. So that is your task to do, and I hope you will be able to complete it using absolute cell referencing. So use absolute cell referencing and do that particular task of getting the area and perimeter. Thank you for now, and see you in our upcoming classes.
Hi candidates, welcome to another session of Manifested Online Classes. So in this session, I want us we continue with the topic of earnings per share, and specifically I want us we discuss on what is diluted earnings per share and the computation of the same. So diluted earnings per share, this is the earnings per share which is computed by those companies which have issued potential ordinary shares. So potential ordinary shares are what? These are those securities which will have been issued by the company at the end of the year, or contracts which the company will have entered into, and which requires the company to issue ordinary shares in the future. A good example of a potential ordinary share is convertible securities like convertible debentures, or stock options which are granted to the employees and which are to be exercised in the future. Definitely, once these particular potential ordinary shares are converted into ordinary shares of the company, then the interest of the original shareholders will be diluted. And therefore, International Accounting Standard number 33 requires any company having potential ordinary shares to compute diluted earnings per share and disclose that as part of the notes together with the basic earnings per share. So therefore, it is important to note that this diluted earnings per share is only computed by those companies which have the potential ordinary share. So therefore, we can say that DEPS is computed by entities which have potential ordinary shares, e.g. convertible debentures, comma, share or stock option, options, etc. So the reason why these companies are required to compute now the diluted earnings per share is because once these potential ordinary shares are converted into ordinary shares, then the interest of the original shareholders will be what? Will be diluted. That's why we are saying is a requirement by IAS 33 for these companies to do what? To compute the diluted earnings per what? Per share. So we can say IAS 33 requires companies or entities having potential ordinary shares, that is abbreviated as POS, potential ordinary shares. IAS 33 requires entities having potential ordinary shares to compute and disclose DEPS together now with the basic earnings per share. So this diluted earnings per share, we said it must be disclosed as part of the note now to the financial statement. So therefore, any company having POS is a requirement. It has to do what? to compute and disclose what we refer as what? The diluted earnings per share. Why? This is because once the POS, the potential ordinary shares, are converted into ordinary shares, the interest of original shareholders will be diluted. And therefore, by computing now the earnings per share, the diluted earnings per share, what the company will be doing, it will be communicating to the shareholders of the company of the earnings per share, or basically the effect of the earnings per share, the effect on the earnings per share once these potential ordinary shares are converted into ordinary shares. If, for example, a company has issued convertible debentures, we know that the holder of these particular debentures will convert them into ordinary shares. So once they convert them into ordinary shares, so what will be the implication of that to the earnings per share of the original shareholders? That's why we are saying that these particular companies which have potential ordinary shares is a requirement under IAS 33 for them to compute and disclose what we refer to as the diluted earnings per share, together with what? The basic earnings per what? The basic earnings per share. So how is diluted earnings per share computed? So maybe you can just look on the computation of diluted earnings per share. How do we compute the diluted earnings per share? So in computing this DEPS, we compute it, or basically it's computed on the assumption that the potential ordinary shares of the company were converted into ordinary shares. Basically what that means is that if, for instance, you're given some information, you're told the company has issued convertible debentures, then for you to compute DEPS, you do what? You assume they were converted into ordinary shares during the current year, and now you ascertain the implication, or basically the effect of that conversion of convertible debentures into ordinary shares on the earnings, or basically the profit attributable to ordinary shareholders, and also you ascertain the implication, the effect of that conversion on the weighted average number of ordinary shares. So that is very, very important, that this earnings per share is computed on an assumption that the potential ordinary shares were converted into ordinary shares. So that is maybe the first important point we can say, that DEPS is computed on the assumption that potential ordinary shares were converted into ordinary shares during the current year, And once that particular assumption is made, then I've said that we need to ascertain, or basically an entity will need to ascertain the implication of that. If this convertible, for example, the convertible debentures were converted into ordinary shares, so what would be the implication of that, both to the profit attributable to ordinary shareholders, and also what would be the implication of that to the number of ordinary shares issued by what? By the company. Like, maybe let me just illustrate what I mean by that. Let me illustrate here. We assume that a company, or we are given some information that a company has issued, for example, 8% convertible debentures, debentures having a value of like 5 million shillings, 5 million.
So for us to be able to compute now the diluted earnings per share given such information, then what we do is that we assume that these particular convertible debentures were converted into ordinary shares during the current year. If that was the case, then that would have or that will affect the profit attributable to ordinary shareholders, and two, the number of ordinary shares issued by this company will do what? Will reduce. Sorry, will increase, that is. And therefore, what you do once you assume that this particular convertible debentures were converted into ordinary shares, you proceed, you compute two items. One, you determine something called the increase in earnings. And number two, you also determine something called the increase in number of shares. So first of all, when we talk about the increase in number of shares, we are referring to the number of ordinary shares which would have been issued by the company on the assumption that these particular convertible debentures were converted into what? Into ordinary shares during the current year. In terms of how we compute this, is very simple, because what you just do, you use the conversion rates. Use the conversion rate which is provided to you by the examiner to compute the number of ordinary shares which would have been issued on the assumption that those particular debentures were converted into ordinary shares. Then also determine something called increase in earnings. What is increase in earnings? Increase in earnings, this refers to the amount by which the profit attributable to ordinary shareholders would have increased with, on the assumption that these particular debentures were converted into ordinary shares. And if these debentures were converted into ordinary shares, it means that the interest payable on these particular debentures, that interest will not have been paid. In other terms, the company would have saved because that interest will not have been paid. And therefore, the profit attributable to ordinary shareholders would have increased with the interest which was paid by the company during that year. Interest paid, and because this particular interest paid is tax allowable, then we take that interest net of tax. So to get the interest net of tax, we multiply that with 1 minus what? Tax rate. So therefore, what we are saying here is that in computing the diluted earnings per share, we assume that the potential ordinary shares were converted into ordinary shares during the current year. Once you make that assumption, then go ahead and determine the amount by which the profit for the current year would have increased with. And number two, you determine the number of ordinary shares issued by the company would have increased with how many shares. And once you determine these two items, then you proceed and automatically compute the diluted earnings per share, of which to compute the DEPS, we take the PATOS, profit attributable to ordinary shareholders, which is used in the computation of basic earnings per share, and then to this you add the increase in earnings. Increase in earnings, I've explained what we mean by that there, and then divide that with 1, still used in the computation of basic earnings per share, and then to this you add increase in number of shares, and equally I've explained what we mean by increase in number of shares there. So that is the general formula, or basically the formula which is used in computing the DEPS. In computing what? The DEPS. Now, from there, we proceed and we look on specifically how we deal with the various types of potential ordinary shares in computation of diluted earnings per share. And I want us to start by looking on the treatment of the first type of potential ordinary share, and that is the convertible debentures, or convertible bonds, or even convertible loan stock or loan notes. So these ones are treated in the same way when computing the diluted earnings per share, because these are types of potential ordinary shares. So if you come across some question and you're told the company had issued convertible debentures, convertible bonds, convertible loan stock, the first thing you need to recall is that this is a potential ordinary share. These are financial instruments issued by the company, which require the company to issue ordinary share in what? In the future. For you to compute the diluted earnings per share, you basically assume that this particular convertible securities were converted into ordinary shares during the current year. Once you make that assumption, then you proceed, you compute two items. the increase in earnings, this refers to the amount by which the profit for the current year would have increased with on the assumption they were converted into ordinary shares. And in terms of how we compute this, we take the interest which was paid, or compute the interest which was paid by the company during that year, and then you multiply that interest with 1 minus tax rate. Reason being that this interest is tax allowable. That's why we are getting that interest net of what? Of tax. And then also you compute something called the increase in number of shares. Increase in number of what? Shares. So, and to compute the increase in number of shares here, I've said just use the conversion rate provided. Use conversion rate provided. Use the conversion rate which is provided. But in this case, in computing this particular increase in number of shares, it is also important to note that if these convertible securities issued by the company were outstanding at the start, meaning that these convertible securities had been issued when the year was starting, then we assume that the conversion equally would have taken place from the start of the year. And that means that those shares which would have been issued on conversion, the number of ordinary shares which would have been issued on conversion would have been held for the whole year. For the whole what? Year. So those particular shares, don't weigh them on time basis because they would have been held for the whole year. But if a convertible security was issued in course of the current year, for example, the company issued convertible securities, convertible debentures, maybe 6 months to the end of the year. 6 months to the end of the year. So in that case, we assume if they were converted into ordinary shares, they would have been converted from the date of the issue. Meaning that the number of shares which you are going to get, which would have been issued on conversion, you have to do what? You have to weigh them on time what? Basis. You have to multiply them with the proportion of time they would have been held, because automatically those shares would not have been held for the whole what? Year. They would have been held from the date of conversion, which is the date of the issue, to the end of the year. So that is how first of all we treat the convertible debentures, convertible bonds, convertible loan stock in computing the diluted earnings per share. Number two, we have convertible preference shares. Preference shares. So this is still a potential ordinary share. Reason being that these preference shares are convertible, means that the holder of these particular preference shares can convert them into ordinary shares. So equally, if you come across a question, you're told a company had issued convertible preference shares, for the purpose of computing DEPS, you assume those convertible preference shares were converted into ordinary shares during the current year. As a result of that, you proceed equally compute the two items. You compute number one, increase in earnings, of which the increase in earnings here is equal to the preference dividends, paid during that year. Preference dividends paid during that year. And then number two, you determine the increase in number of shares. So equally to determine this increase in number of shares, what you do, you equally use the conversion rate. Use the conversion rate provided. Use the conversion rate which is provided. And equally, what I've said here, if the convertible preference shares were issued in course or during the current financial year, you assume the conversion would have taken place from the date of the issue. Basically, what that means that the number of ordinary shares we are going to get as the one or as the shares which would have been issued on conversion, what you do, you have to weigh them on time basis. You have to multiply them with the proportion of time the shares would have been held during that year. Then let's proceed and look on how we compute or how we treat the other type of potential ordinary share in computing the EPS, and that is the share or stock options share or stock option. So when talk about the share or stock option, we know that this basically a privilege is a right which is given to the employees of the company to buy the company shares in the future at a price which is below the market price. Equally, in computing the diluted earnings per share, we assume that these stock options or the share options were exercised during the current year. The employees of the company bought the shares of the company during the current year, but at a price below the market price. So therefore, what you do, you equally have to proceed and you determine the two items. Number one, increase in earnings, increase in earnings, of which the increase in earnings, as far as these potential ordinary shares are concerned, then increase in earnings is always equal to zero. Reason being that here the employees of the company are just granted an option or a right or a privilege to buy the shares of the company in the future at a price below the market price. As a result of the employees being given that right, they are not entitled to any form of return until the time they buy the shares. So therefore, even if they bought those particular shares of the company during the current year, that action by the employees will not affect the profit attributable to ordinary shareholders simply because they are not entitled to any form of return. So by exercising that option, the company will not save anything, so the profit attributable to ordinary shareholders will not be affected. It will not increase. That's why we are saying increase in earnings for stock option is always equal to zero. And then number two, we determine the increase in earnings. Remember, the increase in number of shares, not increase in earnings. Increase in number of shares, this one we have said refers to what? To the ordinary shares, which definitely would have been issued to the employees of the company, assuming they exercise this right, this privilege during the current year. And what we know is that if the employees exercise their option during the current year, then they would have been issued with the shares of the company at a price below the market price. So therefore, what we do here is, number one, we determine the shares which would have been issued to the employees at full market price. That is the issue at a full market price, assuming they exercise the stock option during the current year. And in terms of how we determine these shares issued at full market price, first of all, we compute the amount which would have been received by the company from the employees, and then divide that with the average MPS, average market price per share. Now, these particular shares, because they are issued at full market price, these shares, we say they are not dilutive. Not dilutive. So, not dilutive means that they do not reduce the earnings per share. These are the shares the company issue. The company receive additional resources, receive an amount of money from the employees. That money is invested. By the end of the day, the profit of the company do what? Increase. And equally here, the number of shares increases. So here we are increasing both profit and also the earnings per both the profit and the number of shares. So therefore, these shares issued at full market price, they do not reduce the earnings per share. And therefore, these shares here, for the purpose of computing the DPS, are ignored. So these shares are ignored for the purpose of computing DEPS. We don't consider them. So what we consider is now the other element, number two. And the other element, number two, is what? Is the bonus shares. Bonus shares. So the bonus shares, this refers to those particular shares which would have been issued to the employees of the company, assuming they exercise the stock option, the right during the current year, but free of charge. So how do we compute this? So number one, we take the total shares which would have been issued to them, assuming they exercise the stock option during the current year, and then deduct the shares which would have been issued to them at full market price. And the shares issued to them at full market price is computed using this formula. So we deduct issue at full market price. Now, these particular shares are the ones which are dilutive, So meaning that these shares reduces the earnings per share, because what happened here, the number of shares issued by the company increases, there is no any increase in profit. So generally we know in computing the earnings per share, you take the profit. Bonus shares, we consider them as dilutive. We don't treat them as shares issued free of charge. Here, the diluted earnings per share, we compute